What's going on, guys? It's Cimo. So today, it's Friday, and I thought we could just have a nice, laid-back, casual Friday and discuss some really awesome custom-made Yu-Gi-Oh cards. This is something, actually, when I was a little kid, I would do all the time on little index cards. I would make and design my own cards, and I think this would be a really cool video, not only to kind of just showcase some of the brilliant ideas that some of you guys have, but also to maybe give some ideas for maybe possible card designs in the future, if anyone from Konami's fucking watching this, which I highly doubt they are, but I think it'd be cool to kind of speculate if there is something like that that we might want to see in the game. I think it'd be cool to highlight that and kind of discuss some cool ideas that haven't really been broached in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Itself. So, starting off, I have a card that I designed myself. It's called Triple Twister. So it's a quick play spell card. It's basically Twin Twister, so you discard a card, you target one spell and trap card on the field and destroy it, and if you do, you destroy the adjacent cards to that card as well. So if you're using this just to hit something like a field spell or maybe just a single back row, you're taking a -1, but if your opponent plays their back row all next to each other, you have the possibility to get a +1 off of this card and destroy 3 back row in the process, and that's pretty cool. I think, you know, especially now that with sets like Circuit Break and things like that, and how the column mechanic is really coming back full force, I think it'd be cool to kind of have cards that maybe gain extra benefits if your opponent is playing cards in a particular way. I just think that'd be kind of a cool way. Maybe this is kind of really abusable because otherwise everyone's going to be setting spells and traps in their first, third, and fifth zone, but I think it'd still be really cool regardless. Now moving on, we have Blue Eyes Pendulum Dragon. So you guys know how much I love Blue Eyes, so I saw this card and I thought this was pretty cool. While in your deck, it's also treated as a worm type. When it's pendulum summoned, you can target one dragon type or worm type monster you control. It can't be destroyed by battle or card effects this turn. And once per turn, you can target one dragon or worm type monster your opponent controls. Until the end of this turn, take control of that target. This would be absolutely crazy because Masterpiece is a worm type, and if it's not immune to monster effects, you could take it, and since it's a level 8, Blue Eyes is all naturally level 8 as well. You could also overlay it with this card or another Blue Eyes monster to make a rank 8 play, and I think that would be pretty cool. It also has a pendulum effect as well, but ultimately it'd be kind of cool to see maybe like older legacy archetypes get some sort of pendulum support. I don't really know, it might take away from it, but this would be a really cool way to go about doing it, just kind of having pretty much the scales just fit the archetype perfectly. In this case, this is a scale 9, and having that kind of support would be cool. Maybe a little bit too broken, because if you could just summon out all the Blue Eyes from your hand, it might get a little bit crazy, but it also might fix a lot of the deck's problems as well when your hands start to get clogged with Blue Eyes. Now the next card is Test of True Strength. So when this card is activated, apply one of the following effects. Monsters that cannot be targeted by cards or effects this turn can be targeted by cards or effects, or monsters cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects can be destroyed by battle or card effects. So it pretty much removes the immunity that some cards have from battle or destruction or targeting, and that's kind of a cool thing. I don't really think we have anything like this in Yu-Gi-Oh! And I don't know if having it in a trap card is the best thing. I don't think it's exactly the most viable card, but maybe if it was like a quick play spell and it kind of blanket, it just hit everything on the field that way, I think it'd be a lot more viable. It'd be kind of cool depending on certain decks. It would really like kind of be used as like a countermeasure to something like Magispectors or an archetype that solely has protection from targeting or destruction effects. Cosmo might be another good example here as well, but it might not be good for the current meta, but I think depending on if archetypes come out very similar to stuff like Magispector or Cosmo in the future, something like this would be really cool. I think it'd be kind of nice to have a card that people could tech to counter specific immunity to types of cards. Now the next one, this one's really cool. This one's called the Living Graveyard. So it's a rank 4, 2 level 4 zombies. Basically, while you have Zombie World, it can't be destroyed or targeted, and if you have a Zombie World, you detach a material and special summon a zombie monster from either player's graveyard in attack position. And it kind of goes on from there, but I think what I wanted to pretty much highlight with this card is I feel like I wish we had more cards that were very generic for their type. And what I mean by that is Living Graveyard is a very cool zombie-specific Xyz monster, and I would really like to see cards that basically it's just 2 level 4 zombies, you summon it, and it's basically just like a zombie master in its effect. I kind of feel like we didn't really get a lot of very generic type-based Xyz monsters, or I guess extra deck monsters in general, and we really could just capitalize on the things that those types are known for. Zombies are known for resurrecting from the graveyard, and I think even something very basic like that doesn't need to have huge stats or anything like this card, but it could be really cool to see where a card like that would go. Next up is AKASHIC or AKASHIC Record. Now this card is nuts. Draw 2 cards and reveal them. If one or both of those cards have been played during the duel, remove that cards from play. So basically, this needs a once per turn clause. Let's just start by saying that, because it's basically Pot of Greed. If you use it turn 1, you're most likely going to just get 2 free cards unless you draw another copy of this card. But I think it's really cool that the later the duel goes on, this card actually gets worse and worse, because you could draw 2 cards that have already been used this game, and then they're just going to both get banished, and this card's actually a -1. So this card's only good in the early game. I don't really know. I mean, I feel like the game's already fast enough, but I like the idea behind this card more than anything. This card's absolutely fucking broken, don't get me wrong, but I feel like, you know, if there was something along the lines, maybe it was tuned a bit better. I like kind of like the origin of the idea of this card. Something like that would be really cool to see. Next up is Droll and Lock Sorcerer. This card's fucking stupid. During either player's turn, if your opponent special summons a monster, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. Until your opponent's next standby phase, neither player can special summon monsters. Yeah, so basically it's Vanity's Emptiness in a hand trap. That's really all I gotta say about that. It's pretty fucking good. Next up is Force Set. So during your standby phase, you can pay 2,000 life points and declare a card name. If your opponent has that declared card in their hand, they must set it, and if it is a trap card, it can be activated this turn. So this is kind of like Mind Crush or a Pointer of the Red Lotus, but you don't get the information of what's in your opponent's hand. Now, if they have the specific card you call, they have to set it to the field. So you could call something like, let's say, Raigeki, and then if they have it, they have to set it. So that you get information of a specific card maybe you're trying to play around, but the bad thing about this card is it is a trap. I feel like it's a bit slow in that respect, and I don't feel like it's really worth it because, you know, if they have something that you're trying to play around, let's say it's like Dimensional Barrier, then they can use Dimensional Barrier because you set it to their field. So, again, there's kind of some good things going on with this card, but I just don't think it would really be good enough. Now, it could be absolutely broken in some cases, but I don't think this one would really make the cut in terms of competitive play. Next up is Union Unity. This card, aside from having cool artwork, is pretty interesting, especially if you think in the context of ABC. Reveal a Union monster from your hand or deck that specifically names one or more cards that can be equipped to it in its effect text. Special summon one of those specifically named monsters from your hand, deck, or graveyard, and equip that monster with the revealed Union monster, but it can't be special summoned. So basically, you could special summon any Union monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard, and then equip the one that you showed from your hand. So if you have an A, B, or a C, for instance, you could summon an A from your deck and equip a B that's in your hand. That's pretty neat. And then the other cool part about this, if it's in your graveyard because you resolved it, you can banish it and a Union monster from your graveyard and draw 2 cards. You get to cycle it as well, but only if you activated the effect and resolved it properly. I think that's a really cool way to kind of take use of the Union mechanic and capitalize on having, if you have, you know, Union monsters in your hand, or let's say you only have 1 Union monster and this card, it's a way to kind of unbrick yourself, so to speak, and especially with ABC, like that you can basically get B from anywhere and get the piece that you're missing and have your Dragon Buster online for next turn. And then in the late game, if you need some more resources, you can banish them and draw 2 cards. It's really well designed, and I think it'd be really cool. What did C play? Not really too sure, maybe an ABC, but it's a really strong card nonetheless. Next up is Mind Charge. This card, again, this is another fucking crazy one. At the beginning of your main phase 1, you can reveal any number of cards in your deck, add them to your hand, and if you do, take 3,000 damage for each card, then it becomes the end phase. You can only activate 1 Mind Charge per duel, and you can't add Exodia pieces with it, essentially. So, this card's crazy because, essentially, you get to add 2 cards to your hand for free, at the start of your main phase 1, but the PM's the end of your turn. The thing is though, you could basically just add Max C as one of those cards to deter your opponent from doing anything, but you could also just add 2 of your strongest combo pieces, knowing that your opponent's not going to kill you in a slower meta, and then you'll have everything you need on your next turn, so it's a +1 in that respect. And then if you have everything you need, or you already have your hand traps to protect you, then you're absolutely fine. This card is just fucking crazy, and this would never come out in real life, but something along the lines of this I think would be really cool if we did see it come out, so that's why I wanted to highlight it. Next up is Code Change. This, first of all, the artwork on this card is awesome, but I really love something like this. I don't think it's good enough that it would see play, but the idea behind it's really cool. So, target one face-up card on the field whose effect involves a types of monsters and declare a type. Until the end phase, the types mentioned in the targeted card's text become the declared type. So for instance, if your opponent has Rivalry of Warlords, you can use Code Change and change the type declared with Rivalry of Warlords to a different type so that you're no longer locked underneath Rivalry of Warlords. Or let's say for instance, your opponent has Tribe Infecting Virus, even though it's banned. If your opponent calls a type with Virus, you can use Code Change, go ahead and change the type that they declared because it is a quick play spell, and maybe destroy all monsters on their field instead of the one on yours. So there's really cool aspects to this card, and like the flavor is amazing. I absolutely love it. But again, I think it's a little bit too situational that it would see play, but I love the idea behind this card regardless. Next up is Spell Release. Now, Spell Release is a really cool way to use spells during your opponent's turn. So during your opponent's turn, send one normal spell card from your hand to the graveyard. This card's effect becomes the same as that spell card, and you can only activate one Spell Release per turn. So basically, if you activate this and discard Regeki, you can Regeki your opponent's field during their turn. Or you can Dark Hole them, or any normal spell card. You could even use like Pot of Desires during their turn. That would be kind of crazy. But I think it's really cool. It plays around once per turn effect, so you could Pot of Desires during your opponent's turn and then do it during your turn. There's a lot of really cool things you could do with this card, and I like how it has that opponent's interaction, so you can dodge once per turn effects that way because you're using it on your opponent's turn. Being able to board wipe them on their turn, yeah, I mean, you could just use Torrential, I guess, but it's kind of a cool way that if you have a lot of different normal spells in your deck, to take advantage of those spells moving forward. And then last but not least, I figured I'd end the video on a card that pretty much a lot of us, especially for this first video on this series, because if you guys like this, I'll definitely keep doing it. Mystical Space Typhoon, the Counter Trap. The effect? Negate. So guys, that's gonna do it for this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed this. I really just wanted to highlight some really cool cards that I found just while looking on the internet. Some people also messaged me on Twitter as well once I said that this is what I was gonna do with some of their cool cards that they came up with. So if you want to see some of your cards showcased on a future episode of this series, just go ahead and send them to me on Twitter, Facebook, you know, wherever you can, and maybe yours will be featured in the next episode. So guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always, subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content, and if you really found this video entertaining, consider backing me on Patreon, because just by pledging only $1 a month, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.